Welcome back, everybody, to another special episode here of the Chop Sports Daily. We have ourselves a 2021 college football preview. The playoffs are here. The bowl game is here. Bowl games are here. I mean, I feel like there's 67 bowl games going on right now. But anyway, Dave Sturch and Gooch, and of course, our guest today, Matt Birdsall. Matt, what's going on, bro?
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited. You're from College Football Talk Daily. You can find him on Twitter at CFB Talk Daily. He is the college football guru that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, everybody's been giving us a hard time that we don't know our college football. And granted, there is a little bit that we could know a little bit more. So what we did is we brought in our expert, and that's what Matt is here to do. Provide the insight that we have not been able to provide for you.
Yeah, I mean, college football is obviously headed towards its playoffs. I mean, how he feels about the 4-team set, we can get into that. We can get into so many things going with college football. But first and foremost, keeping it on a local front, just the other day, it was announced that Rutgers was finally going to go bowling, right? This was a big, big announcement. You're wearing a Rutgers shirt. I know people really can't see it, but it's a dope.
That's the Garden.
It's a dope Rutgers shirt. It's a Rutgers with the jersey silhouette. He's wearing that along with that disgusting, atrocious New Jersey Devils hat. I am a Rangers fan, so excuse me for that one. But anyway, thinking about Rutgers now, we just had Mike Tverdoff, their defensive end. I was referring to him as former defensive end, right? He declared for the NFL draft, right? Out of nowhere, Rutgers gets this bid, right? Rutgers gets to fill on in, and all of a sudden they are now 14.5-point dogs, but they're going to be playing Wake Forest this weekend. Your thoughts about first getting that ultimate call, like where all of a sudden the news outlets started picking up that Rutgers was about to get in, and then obviously your thoughts about, their chances of actually winning this game.
So when I first saw that, A&M bails out, I knew it was going to be a tough situation for them to get a team right away. It goes to APR. It's like team GPA. I knew there was no way that anyone was really going to be above Rutgers. Continuously they're top of that line.
Yeah.
Initially, the reports were that they turned it down because then it was going to go to, I want to say Illinois was the next choice. And I think Texas was going to be after that. So at first I was like, you know what? That's a week's notice. All the kids are probably home.
Which they definitely were.
Yeah,
they definitely were. We had
Tverdoff was in studio.
Yeah, right. They were back on Christmas. That was their first day back from what I saw. And, equipment's out. So I was like, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces to get back. And then I saw they were going to get the $4.5 million.
Yeah. But how much of that do you think they're actually going to get to keep, though? Because I feel like they lose money when they go to the certain bowl games.
So I want to say, I'm not an expert on this. I want to say that money goes into, some of it goes back to the conference.
Yeah.
But a lot of it goes to them. And right now, they need.
Yeah, Rutgers has been losing some money over the past couple of years.
They've been deferring the Big Ten money.
Yeah.
Which is smart and stupid at the same time. I think the first payment was going to be $12 million. And
Wait. Explain that to me like I'm 5. Deferring money from the Big Ten? The Big Ten were going to pay Rutgers and they're saying, no, we don't want it?
So when they joined the Big Ten, let's say
they get it eventually.
The first number was $12 million.
Okay.
And Rutgers said, Big Ten said, do you want it now or do you want to wait 3 more years and we'll give you 17? And 3 years down the road, Rutgers said, hold out. We don't want it yet. Give us 24 or whatever. So the money keeps going up. But I think with all the revenue, all the all the new facilities coming in with Schiano, paying Schiano and all of his coaches, they got to start getting that money. So I think this bowl revenue is going to start helping them out.
And you're a season ticket holder. You're a season ticket
paid.
holder, and you realize that the Rutgers games, it's more like a tailgate party, but the game itself is largely unattended, and that's been the issue for finances, obviously.
If you look at the season tickets this year, were the highest. They went down astronomically with Ash.
You had season tickets, correct?
Yeah, this year it's our first year with season tickets.
Gonna keep doing it.
Honestly, it's nothing against Rutgers. The commitment is what's holding. I was telling Crit,
you're talking about.
I go to different stadiums every year with all my buddies. It's hard to look at their schedule and be like, all right, which game do I want to miss? I paid. We paid.
You paid money for Rutgers game. You don't want to go to another game the day that you paid for a Rutgers ticket.
Exactly. This year we missed out on the Michigan State game, which they ended up losing. But God forbid they win that game.
Yeah, you want to be
down
there
in North Carolina. I'm like, I'm jackass. I'm an asshole for not going to that.
Makes sense.
I agree. So the likelihood now, how does Rutgers stack up? I mean, we've seen them play really well in the beginning of the season. Then they kind of fell off a little bit, but then they grab one against Illinois, right?
Yeah.
And then so this Wake Forest team, again, me and Gooch are not going to claim to sit here and say I have a little bit of
a pulse on Wake Forest because I did bet them, and I do like North Carolina, so I was invested a little bit in Wake Forest throughout the season. They have an offense, and I used to slap the overs, and whenever Wake Forest was playing, I just have a hard time. They have no defense whatsoever. So Rutgers might be able to move the ball, but I'll leave it to you because you clearly.
I saw something that Wake was the only team at one point to score 40 points in all of their games. And this was like week 8.
Yeah.
So they scored like, but they don't run the ball.
It's all air attack. Okay.
Yeah. But so to me, when I watch this Rutgers team, like look at the Michigan game, Michigan ground team, they run down your throat. Rutgers stop them on the ground. But I'm afraid of what happens with the secondary.
Right.
That scares me, especially when they don't have a defensive coordinator right now. They don't extend Rob Smith. They don't bring him back. So
it's not like a player.
DC
You're
right
not
now,
going to have a defensive coordinator. It's different for a coach than it is for a player, because a player, you could make I guess they had to jump through some hoops to get these guys that declared and hired agents. Yeah. But with a coach, it's like, no, you're no longer a paid staff member. So you're gone. You can't bring back a coach for one game.
I think like
that is bizarre.
If they accepted that bowl invite on, what was it, like Tuesday? It was on like a Tuesday. Rob Smith, he probably was informed on Saturday.
Yeah, not to mention Wake Forest has been practicing against, for a pretty tough A&M team, and then they end up getting a Rutgers team.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been practicing. That's been home, doing interviews at Chop Studios.
Right.
Well, I think the day of they found out they were playing. I think Birdsall was here because I saw it, and then later that night I saw.
Yeah, it was literally the next day.
At least I wonder if he was here getting texts like.
I don't know.
Back in the weight room,
right. Well, he already had intent to go back to the weight room to train for the combine and all the pro days, January 3rd. So this is just like a 2-week. By the way, get your ass back. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's crazy how fast it all happened. But now, all right. So Rutgers, bias aside, they got a shot in this game.
I think it comes down to not the defense. I think offensively they have to move the ball, and they have to be able to throw the ball more than 10 yards. And I think that's been
confident in their quarterback play.
Depends who plays.
I'm
not sold on Noah Vidal. I'm not one of those guys who hates Noah Vidal. I like Noah Vidal. What he's done, he's tough.
He's a good kid. He's got his head screwed on. He wants to be a coach. He might be the Rutgers quarterback's coach.
But he wants to play. We've seen him take hits.
Yeah.
Come out of the game for a play, come right back in.
Right.
So he's a tough kid, but
he's got grit.
I think he kind of limits their offense. He doesn't have the strongest arm. Like that's why I liked Art Sikowski. Granted, he liked to throw the ball to the other team a lot as a freshman, but he opened the field up a little bit. When a guy like Vidal really doesn't throw the ball 25 yards, 30 yards deep downfield, you can
So we're going to sit here and say that if Wimsatt does get the bulk of the snaps, which I think that there's a chance that he gets more than half, I would say they held him out of the Maryland game probably for the idea that if they do get a bowl game, they wouldn't affect his season's eligibility next year. Mm-hmm. So I would say that I agree with you. It's interesting because he's a very young kid. He's basically a high school senior still.
He really should be.
So him playing in a bowl game,
still, bro.
The storyline itself, crazy. It will be amazing, and it'll be great for Rutgers if they could actually have that kid come in and pull off an upset in a bowl game. I think that's their only chance. Being the fact that Noah is actually has another year of eligibility, you might get to see a little preview of what next season is going to be like. Where you see a little bit of a college football. What they did in Carolina this past week, a timeshare with Darnold and Cam Newton, you might see a little Wimsatt and Noah Vidal back and forth.
Interesting. Well, listen, go Rutgers because we're all rooting for Rutgers.
I would love for
obviously we all want Rutgers to win this game.
Oh, by the way, Wake Forest minus 14.5 is a lock.
Jesus,
just gonna say that.
Come on.
No, it's not. You can't bet Rutgers against Rutgers in New Jersey anyway. At least I can't.
That's true. You have to have the offshore account. We'll talk to Toast.
I'll talk to the Toast.
Which is the dumbest thing in the world.
Stupidest idea.
But all right, so meat and potatoes. Why we're all going to be celebrating tomorrow on New Year's Eve when we're all in front of our TVs and couches, because I personally don't really do anything anymore on New Year's Eve. I've gotten too old, I guess. But it's awesome that they put the college football playoff back-to-back games starting from 3:00 or 3:30 to like 7:30. So basically from 3 to 10, it's college football, and then you watch the ball drop and go to bed. So the first game. Obviously, this is the one that I have rooting interest in because I'm a former Bearcat, not from Cincinnati, the Fords. So I'm a former Bearcat, and I'm rooting for the Bearcats here, man. I understand that it's just the spread is ridiculous, and it's almost as much as we just talked about with Rutgers and Wake Forest. It is 13.5. Tell me why Cincinnati could cover this game, or do you feel like this is going to be a runaway?
No, I see. I don't.
You notice how nobody said win. Dave didn't say, how could Cincinnati win this game? You really giving them no chance.
No, how do they just get close?
I think it'll be closer than the 13.5 number, though. When that came out, I knew it was going to be high. But you watch the SEC championship game, Alabama looks like Alabama. But Mechie, the number 2 receiver, tears his ACL, out for the year. So now Cincinnati has best cornerback in the country. I was telling him when you
Dude, do you know this guy's name by any chance?
Is it Jair Alexander? Oh,
No,
no.
We're in the NFL.
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant is
And
his name.
he's actually wearing number 8.
Come on. Like, first of all, come on.
Kobe.
All right. Anyway, RIP.
I want to say I'm terrible with names.
How do I not know that?
That's what I'm saying. Like, when he told me that, I'm like, wait, what? Like,
maybe I don't know anything about college football after all.
When you don't know that there's a cornerback, the best cornerback in the country, named
Kobe
Bryant.
Corner. Yeah, he's
like, wow.
He's won. He won the award, best corner.
Mamba mentality and everything. Go ahead.
So he's going to be on. I want to say Alabama's number 1 receiver. It's Jamison Williams. I want to say that's his name. I'm terrible with names though. If he can limit the air and Cincinnati can keep them on the ground, they have a chance to at least keep it close. Ritter's going to have to make plays on it with his feet because if you look at Alabama historically, the last 10 years, they've struggled with mobile quarterbacks. They struggle with Manziel. They struggle with Kellen Mond. They just I mean, like it's against a team
that has the discipline and the talent they have defensively. Usually, what's going to happen on the back end is going to be fairly good coverage, and the only thing that you can't account for is when you do everything right and then the quarterback breaks the pocket and he's just an athlete. And it doesn't matter how good you are or how you execute. When you have a guy like that, it changes the game.
And now Alabama has that with Bryce Young.
Yeah,
where you can have great coverage. No one's open. He steps up in the pocket, 15 yards.
Yeah,
right.
So I think the first half it'll be a close game. I think they'll go into halftime. Cincinnati down 3, say like 1-score game where people are saying, holy shit.
When was the last time Cincinnati lost a game? It's like 2011.
What?
No, I'm joking. That was sarcasm. But it's been a while. They're like
I think they lost 1 game last year.
Oh, did they lose last year?
Yeah. They kind of poo-poos.
I thought that they won like 30 in a row, or like they're like 29-1.
No. I mean, but they have a lot of pressure right now. Like Is
there a lot of pressure though? Think about it. Like you're going against Alabama. The world doesn't expect you to win. The pressure's off, I feel.
No, but so I don't know if they're thinking this, but they're like they're the first team for Group of 5 to get in. If they go in and lose by 40,
then it's going to be a lot hard. Yeah, they have a lot riding on this.
Exactly.
I get
for the future of their conference.
For the future for Group of 5.
Group 5,
Central Florida, notoriously 3 or 4 years ago, 13-0, doesn't get a bid to the playoff, and then they beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl.
I remember
and then everyone talks about that for next few years.
Is that one of those situations that kind of spawned the college? I mean, I know it's been in the making for a long time.
Oh, yeah, they had the playoff at this point. But
they did. See, that shows what I know.
The problem with the Group of 5 is everyone says who do they play? Alabama. They're playing Ole Miss, A&M.
That's why I thought Cincinnati had like the 3 seasons straight of where they didn't lose. And last year it was a shortened season, so I think that their undefeated season doesn't really hold as much water. But I thought that it was more or less them getting in this year. Well, obviously you couldn't deny them because of the landscape of what happened with the other teams. But I thought it was more so like a body of work thing where you saw when guys get MVP awards, maybe they weren't the MVP that year, but it's like when you look at the 3 years, it's like, all right, we're going to finally give it to this guy.
Right.
And I thought that's what the Cincinnati thing kind of was, where it's like you can't deny them again. I thought that I'm almost positive.
I think what helped them this year is they actually had they had 2 Power 5 wins. They beat Notre Dame on the road, which helped them.
Yeah.
And they beat Indiana. Indiana wasn't, 9-win Indiana, as people called them last year.
Right.
Wasn't the same team, but it's still a Big Ten team that they beat on the road. They beat Notre Dame on the road. I think they beat Notre Dame by 11.
Yeah.
So, they didn't.
Well, that was definitely their crowning moment this year.
They at least had a legitimate victory that the committee looked at and say, all right, they beat, Notre Dame's what? Number 8?
Notre Dame gets 10 wins a year for the last decade, so they're legit. They're legitimate.
Yeah, they picked their own schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Look, we could talk about that until we're blue in the face, and I'm probably in lockstep with you. But the thing is, Notre Dame doesn't give a shit because they're getting that money, so they're still making more money. I don't know that they'll never will, because I think as you see things kind of take place in the next couple of years, and what you saw with them this year is that it's hurting them. It really is. In the long run, I think maybe in 5-10 years when, I guess it's tough though. Notre Dame will always be that TV game, and that's really where they're getting their money. So if they enter the conference,
they're a professional college team.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at Notre Dame.
They kind of shoot themselves in their foot because their rivalries every year is the Florida State game, Stanford, and USC. In the last 5 years, all 3 of those teams have been down. Historically, 2 of the 3 aren't down all at the same time.
Right.
So, for the most part, they're normally playing a Florida State team that, well, then they had Jameis Winston.
And I also think it's going to be harder for teams like Stanford to compete in the coming years. Like, are they the one team that, the Pac-12 is kind of dying, no?
I've always said this with the Pac-12. It's, if you look at like the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the SEC, it's very top heavy 9 times out of 10, where, Michigan this year is so much better than, the bottom feeders who, than the Northwesterns of the conference.
Yeah.
Where with the Pac-12, like, Utah and Oregon are the 2 teams that are the Pac-12's, pride and joy right now, but they all just beat each other. Stanford can beat Oregon any week. And then they knock themselves out of the playoff. Like 2 years ago, Oregon's undefeated going into week 9.
So there's no legitimate teams that are leaving the Pac-12 for one of these newer makeup
super duper
SEC conferences, because I know there's so many moving parts that I can't keep track of that, and I just don't. I see certain teams that are, even a Utah situation like that, where a Pac-12 conference championship isn't going to hold as much water as a team that, let's say Georgia, not winning the SEC. When you have the amount of the teams that are in that conference, it's like, okay, they didn't win, they have 1 loss, but they beat 6 teams that would have won the Pac-12.
Yeah, the Pac-12, they missed out on a lot of good moves. I think BYU's joining the Big 12. There's no reason why they shouldn't have brought in BYU. There's no reason why Boise State's not in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
They're not blue bloods. They're not going to make the program.
Blue field, not blue blood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they're not going to make the conference prestige
DeMarcus
much
Lawrence.
better.
I hear you.
Yeah.
But it's kind of more respectable than what it is now, which it hasn't really had any respect in the last 5 years.
All right, so
pick
bringing
the
it
game.
back. Yeah,
Pick
bringing
this
it
game.
back to this.
What do we got
Yeah.
with the spread? Pick the game. What do you got?
So for the Alabama game, I don't want to say Alabama covers because I just want to see Cincinnati.
I'll say it.
keep
I'll go
close.
right ahead and say Alabama's going to win by 3 touchdowns.
I think Cincinnati keeps it close.
I think I had
The
predictions.
story's
written
nice.
out.
I'm with it.
I think Cincinnati barely covers. Like, this is going to be like a 12-point game.
Maybe a little backdoor action.
Maybe.
I
maybe.
think the score is
Pause.
going to look a lot closer than the game actually is.
Yeah.
One of those.
All right, let's move it on to the Michigan Wolverines, who are 7.5-point dogs against the Dogs, Georgia. The Bulldogs off of their embarrassment, but Michigan off of their starching. So one team's trending up, one team's trending down. Overall, I'm a big Jim Harbaugh guy. I've always been since his playing days, not even before he got to Michigan. But how do you see this one shaking out? Obviously the money, the people are going to be betting Georgia heavy, I think.
No, the money's heavy on Michigan.
Oh, is it really? All right,
I
so
feel like
that's how stupid.
I think money line, it's like 80% Michigan right now, the line.
Really?
Because, see, in my opinion, I've been saying this from the beginning, Georgia plays a Big Ten offense, which Michigan's
been dealing with the likes of a Georgia-styled team for the entire season, but Georgia's defense is way better than anything that they've seen in the Big Ten, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's what's going to be the difference.
Yeah.
If they need to, like, look what Alabama just did to Georgia. They opened up the pass. They opened up the run game by just throwing the ball. And, you can't load the box if you're Georgia when your guys are getting beat outside. So if Michigan, a team who really isn't comfortable throwing the ball, I think McNamara has only thrown for 15 touchdowns this year, and Hassan Haskins has 20 or 22 rushing touchdowns. So the numbers are very skewed to have heavy run offense. They need to pass the ball in order to win this game. They can't just rely on running because Georgia will stuff them.
Yeah, and just me going off of what I think is going to go down this game. I don't think that Michigan has the offensive firepower. You saw what Michigan did in the Rutgers game, and I know that's a one game. I'm cherry picking a game here, but they struggled mightily. And Georgia's defense, we're talking about the best defense going into the Alabama game. There was people talking like they were the best defense that they've seen in 2 decades in college football. I don't know about all that. That might be a stretch, but Georgia's defense is better than anything Michigan has seen. I just think that they're going to be in for it athletically, physically, speed-wise. There's just going to be too much for Michigan to handle.
I think Michigan's defense can at least keep them in this game. Georgia kind of has not a quarterback controversy, but it seemed like Kirby Smart wanted to pull the trigger on Stetson Bennett in the SEC championship game, wanted to bring in JT Daniels. He doesn't have that luxury now. You can't change a quarterback in the second quarter. And he could, but you can't just, hey, JT, you haven't played much this year.
Against a defense like Michigan.
Go play in the college football semifinals and lead us to victory.
You don't want to pull off a Tyler Huntley against the Cleveland Browns.
So I think their defense can keep them in this game. I really think Michigan has a legitimate chance to win this game.
So I know that you said this earlier. I'm not trying to divulge your personals, but you took Michigan as soon as you saw the line come out.
Absolutely.
So you're one of the people on the 80% money side of Michigan. Did you take money?
The spread.
Okay. You didn't balls out and take the money line.
No. My theory was I thought the line was going to drop and it didn't.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to give away Kyle's pick on this one because I don't know if he's making a YouTube, but you're in lockstep with a guy that so I did give away Kyle's pick. So
Kyle's going Michigan?
I think Kyle's going Michigan. I overheard a conversation, but either way, I don't think that there's many people that are going to be tuning into this that out of the 10,000 views he's going to get on his video. I think
this is true.
We'll see. Safe.
We'll see. But all right. So the money is on Michigan. You're riding Michigan. So right away, like knee jerk reaction. If goes the chalk of what you think is going to happen, Alabama, Michigan, who's national champion?
I don't see where a situation where Alabama doesn't win the national championship.
Fucking Nick Saban.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Maybe next week,
like Belichick.
What we'll do is next week we'll revisit the live show thing, and the day before the actual championship game, it might even be a week after that. Who knows? But we'll have you come back on because I thought that this was good so far, and we still have a couple more games to talk about, but we got the good stuff out of the way now.
Yeah, let's fly through the Saturday. There is some games on Saturday, which a couple intriguing games on Saturday. We'd start with Baylor and Ole Miss. Again, couldn't tell you one thing about each one of these schools, but that's what you're here.
That's what I guess. Yeah. So Baylor wins the Big 12. Play a quarterback, true freshman who hadn't played really at all. I think he started the game 17 or 17 passing. So it depends on who's going to play. Jerry Buchanan was their starter all year. He was kind of shaken up. He can play. The kid, the freshman, I can't remember his name right now. The kid played lights out in the Big 12 championship game. So depending on who plays,
and they haven't made an announcement as to who's going to play.
Not that I've seen, no. But I think they can keep it close. But the one thing Ole Miss has is Matt Corral is playing. So Matt Corral, if he isn't hurt this year with knee injuries, I think he's in New York City as a Heisman finalist. He is like the sculpture for a Lane Kiffin offense, where it's just like 2 steps, throw, play gets done, back under huddle. I think they only had like 17 seconds in between plays this year.
So they're high paced. That's what's that old Chip Kelly?
Chip Kelly.
Yeah, I remember that. Wow. All right. So
that's old Buffalo Bills offense. They were the same way.
I like Ole Miss in this game just because of Matt Corral.
The tempo, Matt Corral. I'll go with Ole Miss because I take the SEC all day.
I'll go with Ole Miss because you guys are both going with Ole Miss. So that's where I'm going to go with that one. What else we got? We got Ohio State and Utah. OHIO.
This is probably the trickiest game because of how Utah has looked this year. There are times where they look phenomenal, like when they piss pounded Oregon twice. They change quarterbacks beginning of the year, go on an 8-1 run, win the Pac-12. But beginning of the year, they take San Diego State. They lose to San Diego State in triple overtime. They lose to Oregon State. Oregon State's not a bad team, but you
got to win that game.
You're a 10 or 11 win conference champion. You beat Oregon State.
Right.
If that team shows up, I think they can make it a game. I just think Ohio State's so athletic. They do everything.
It's Ohio State, after all.
I think that you could, even though they lost to Michigan, you can make the case that Ohio State is the top 3 team in the country.
Absolutely,
still. Just it happens to be that they lost that one game.
They were the first real home game this year for Rutgers, and because I had seen, I guess they played Temple and Delaware at that point. We went to the Ohio State game, high expectations coming off the Michigan game.
Yeah.
And I knew at kickoff I was watching, I was like, these guys are just so much more athletic.
Yeah, and you look at their offensive line, they're just a head taller than everybody. And then their receiver, I think Ohio State's receivers are so good. Is it Olave? Oh, they're all.
I forget his name. Kid's number 79. I remember he's 6'8", 350.
All you have to do is just look at the 2022 draft prospects, and you'll see them all in the first round.
Bing.
I was with 3 of my buddies, and I was like, dude, he would block all 4 of us if he bum rushed them same time.
Yeah.
He's like the biggest human being I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he's like 17.
Nice. All right, one final game to touch on real quick. Oklahoma State, the Cowboys taking on Notre Dame. This one I have a rooting interest in because obviously Notre Dame is who they are, and I secretly always kind of liked Oklahoma State because they were called the Cowboys when I was a kid. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, so that's secretly a little bit of a rooting interest there. But I'm interested to see Notre Dame with who the hell's coaching.
Yeah, well,
they hired their guy,
Marcus Freeman,
but that's going to be his first game.
Yeah,
that's insane to me.
It could have been a playoff game.
It could have been a playoff game.
That would have been the crazy scenario. He's he's a DC, and then like, all right, you're the coach for the playoff game. Get in there.
Yeah.
You know, try to beat Michigan or
whoever.
it was.
Real quick, what's the guy's name?
Marcus Freeman.
Marcus Freeman, because now that's the third time that I've had to been told the new Notre Dame coach's name, because we had talked about them hiring Urban Meyer after they had already hired a guy. And that's what actually started the whole, you guys don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, I got my buddy
with college football.
Pat Kenny is a big Notre Dame guy, Colonia guy. He ripped me a new one when I was like, yeah, Urban Meyer would be great over there. And you're like, all of a sudden you're like, hello, we hired somebody already. Stop the press.
Now with this kid or guy, I shouldn't say kid. I'm sure I'm older than him, right? But do you think Pat Kenny was the guy that said that he's like one of the hottest coaching prospects in the country? Is he a guy that they kept because if he didn't take the Notre Dame job, he would have gotten hired somewhere else?
Yeah. I think originally the thought was, so when Kelly leaves, I think immediately the initial reaction was, all right, when the playoffs are done, we're going to go after Luke Fickell from Cincinnati. And, you know, with him going to the playoffs, there was no guarantee that he was going to sign. And now you're looking at, you know, end of January, they don't have.
Is that Robert Saleh Light? Is that what some of the people were calling him? Robert Saleh Light?
Who? Fickell?
Fickell?
I don't know.
No. I feel like he's almost has like a little bit more of higher status as a coach at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think they're
talking about looks, by the way.
If they waited for Fickell and didn't get Fickell, now you're in the end of January, you don't have a head coach.
Right.
So the original thought was Fickell goes to Notre Dame, Freeman goes to Cincinnati. I mean, Freeman, I saw the video when they announced him as, you know, the coach to the players. They look like they love the guy.
All right, so that's you expect that usually in an interim situation, but the fact that he actually got the job shows you that Notre Dame isn't playing around. They don't want anybody else to get this guy.
He's a young guy. He was with Ohio State. I mean, like with Ryan Day. Like, he has had good experiences as a defensive.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm a Packer fan, and when they hired Matt LaFleur, nobody knew about him, but he's doing his thing. So I believe in the fact the same thing with San Diego in the NFL with Brandon Staley. Some of these guys, they don't need to have the accolades if they have the acumen. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Well, big Saturday slate, big college football slate going down tomorrow night. Obviously, if you're watching this, it is on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel because this will be airing the night before all of the action that goes down on New Year's Eve. And, of course, New Year's Day, there's a whole bunch of football for when you're hungover. You can all just sit around the couch, eat some food, eat some leftovers, and watch some football. Matt, bro, thank you for joining, bro. I would love
bearing with us throughout all the technical
I would love to keep you on and keep bringing you back because I learned more about college football in a half hour than I learned all year of getting yelled at by Jimmy or yelled at by Pat or yelled at by people that say, you don't know any college football. Well, then now we do. Now we got a guy, okay?
And I think that going into next year, we have an understanding as to how we're going to approach it.
Yeah.
And we'll have our expert. We'll have our college football thing sorted by next year.
We will.
Next year.
We got next year. So let's go, Rutgers. Get it done. Get that bowl game.
Go
bring it home.
Baby. Let's go. No, I'm kidding. Let's go, Rutgers.
Let's bring
I got my boys on.
Chop in there, Rutgers. Do your thing. And, of course, enjoy all the playoffs. So for Sturch and Gooch and, of course, our boy Matt, this has been a college football preview special right here on the Chop Sports YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.